Hey woodworkers. So a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, which I probably should have mentioned before gluing up, but first thing is that you'll notice these two layers did not get laminated, and that was by design. I want to have some extra material here on top of the parts that I'm going to laminate for a couple reasons. It starts to displace the pressure a bit more evenly, and it also acts as a clamping block for what might dent or bruise the board. I don't know if you can see this. So by protecting it, you can't see it. You can see this one a little bit better, or not at all. All right, let me do this. So by protecting the glue up, by having these pieces, these little bruises that you may or may not be able to see, do not translate to the part that I care about. The other thing of note is the centering of this piece on my form. So it's really easy when you're gluing these things down to have this slightly skew one way or the other, and that's going to introduce a twist into your curve. So just being mindful of this, and so I started in the center, as you remember, and I was starting to walk this thing down. I wanted to make sure that the stack was aligned, but also that the laminations were all more or less right in the center here. And there are other ways of going about doing that that are a bit more technical, but for what we're doing, I think that this is totally acceptable, and I've had good luck with this in the past. All right, the other thing that needs to be mentioned is that spring back conversation that we've had a couple of times now. So spring back is a situation where the internal nature of the wood wants to be in a linear fashion or straight shape, right? This is how the tree grew for the most part. It was milled this way. So it kind of wants to stay that way. Without having glue in between these layers, then it's going to spring back up. But because we're fighting that a little bit, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a gap on these two ends, and that's the wood trying to go back to its natural position. So if that is a factor, or it's something that is going to interfere with your design, that's the big point of why we make these forms with screws and we don't glue these layers together. If we need to pull everything apart, modify the form, and then pull it back together so that we can get it to, even with the spring back, get to the exact shape that we need it to, then so be it. We have that option. All right, so the next question now is, how do I true this stuff up? And so the first step for me is going to be to get this tape off, which I'm wrestling with. All right, so once the tape is off, any of the squeeze out that's present, I'm going to scrape that off, and then I'm just going to run this over the jointer. I'll run this on edge, fence will be here on the jointer, I'll run this across, and then it's a true piece. Unfortunately, with the dried glue making contact with the knives, if you have straight knives, this is going to chew up those knives a little bit more, a little bit faster than it would if you're just running wood over it. If you have the carbide cutters or those helical blades, far less of an issue, and the glue is just not much of a challenge for those carbide blades. So let me shoot a video there and then talk about truing up the other edge. All right, thanks everyone.